with attorney. Let's stretch that. Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I am back with attorney Andrea Burkhart. Just talked to her the other day, and we talked about the lawsuit Marilyn Manson filed against Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore. But at that point, although Andrea knew the details of the lawsuit, she had not actually read it in detail. So she's had an opportunity to look at it now. And I'm just curious, kind of right off the bat, is there anything, Andrea, that jumps out at you that you think is most interesting about that document?
The document is so well done. We're going to get into the details of exactly how powerful this piece of legal writing is. It has very much changed my perspective in terms of what we can anticipate is forthcoming. And these attorneys are not fucking around.
Really? I love it. Okay. All right. Do tell. Go ahead.
So when we first started talking about this lawsuit yesterday, the complaint had not been released at that point in time. So we're relying on the reports from TMZ and, the various media outlets who had obviously had access to the filing themselves, but we at that point did not. And so a couple of things from my perspective have come to light now since we have the actual document in our hands. And that has dramatically revised my opinion about the AntiSlap and not only its role in this lawsuit, but its likelihood of success. When this was first reported, and even a lot of the media coverage that we continued to see after the complaint became public, it really seized on the defamation claim and essentially presented this lawsuit as though this is Marilyn Manson suing Evan Rachel Wood on the basis of the claims that she's made against him. And now that we have the actual complaint, we see that that's not the case at all. There's actually only one claim for defamation out of several causes of action that he's asserted against both Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore. And the defamation claim itself is extremely specific. It is based on one statement attributed to Ilma Gore having to do with the claims she was making that Marilyn Manson had videotaped the sexual abuse of a minor. That's the information that was apparently referring to this movie that Paula Weiss, one of your guests, had starred in, was not a minor at the time, was 22 years old, and from my understanding, has no issues to this day with how that project unfolded. So what they've done in this case that is just the mark of absolutely outstanding legal minds is they have slap-proofed their case. And the reason why I say that, you remember when we talked about the AntiSlap yesterday, the whole point of it is that it's there to protect people who are being subjected to lawsuits on the basis of their constitutionally protected speech and petitioning activity. So the first thing that a person who is trying to pursue an anti-slap motion has to do is they have to show, hey, this claim that's filed against me, it's arising from my constitutionally protected activity. When the case is pitched as one as defamation against Evan Rachel Wood for making accusations against Marilyn Manson, that's clearly going to fall under the anti-slap umbrella. But now that we have the actual complaint, we see this is based on conduct. And not only is it based on conduct, it's based on conduct that is far removed from the underlying allegations themselves. The specific acts consisting of the swatting and the fabrication of the FBI documentation, the perjurious statements that Evan Rachel Wood apparently made in court on the basis of that forged document. These things are not the types of things. They're completely independent of, the allegations that she's chosen to levy against him in public. And so that completely changes the landscape on the AntiSlap. The defamation claim, of course, is still probably subject to that. But we can assume that they chose that particular claim for a pretty good reason. It is extremely narrow, as I've said. And so we can expect that they very likely do have pretty good evidence of all of the elements that they'd need to prove.
Wow. Okay. So you think it's a really well written, a very effective, potentially very effective lawsuit?
It's extremely well done. And so what they've done that's just so brilliant. And some of that you have to thank Ilma, Gore, and Evan Rachel Wood for giving them all of these grounds to be able to assert. But what they've been able to do then is they've been able to challenge Evan Rachel Wood's claims indirectly, instead of being the actual basis of the cause of action that's going to determine whether or not they are liable for the causes of action he's alleged. It's indirect. It's presented as a theory of motive, as this is why she chose to do the things that they did. But since that's not in and of itself something that he has to prove in order to win on these claims, it's not going to be a dispositive issue when it comes to these questions like, is the AntiSlap protection going to apply? So it was very well crafted, very thoughtful how they chose to do that. It's going to enable Marilyn Manson to be able to litigate those accusations, but his success or not on this lawsuit as a whole is not going to depend on the outcome of that litigation.
Wow, that's interesting. So I'm curious then, once, let's say that this lawsuit then does advance beyond any SLAP objections. What do you think, just looking at what you have here, assuming that, everything is correctly represented, I don't think they've fabricated any evidence or anything, right? But what do you think would be the likelihood of actually prevailing in a trial? Like, he wants a jury trial, at least that's what has been said.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is extremely compelling to me. I said that yesterday, just based on what we knew at the time. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. If I had been Marilyn Manson's attorney and this case landed in my lap, I would be doing cartwheels. This is the best gift that somebody in that position can possibly have. So, if I am Evan Rachel Wood, am I going to want to go to trial in face of this type of accusation and this type of evidence that even at this earliest possible stage, just this tiny amount that we've seen so far, it just has the potential to be career ending.
Yeah. So, wow. What do you think, or what else do you notice in the lawsuit? Are there other things that jump out at you, or that when you were surprised or impressed by when you read?
I was really impressed at the way in which they substantiated their allegations at this early stage. And so normally when you're filing a civil complaint, the purpose is just to state what your allegation is and to show that you are asserting facts that, if you're able to prove them to be true, would constitute a legal cause of action. So you aren't normally required to submit evidence at this particular stage of the proceedings.
It's like a prospectus or something, or a thesis or something that you're sort of putting forth in a way. But
yeah, it's kind of almost more of an opinion piece. It's just, this is what I expect I would be able to prove at trial. And so California is what they call a notice pleading state. You don't have to put out a whole lot of detailed information about the basis for your claim, but they've obviously chosen to do that in this case. So that decision to include these pieces of evidence in their initial pleading, that was very strategic, very considered. And I think it's had a couple of effects that are significant game changers in my opinion. One is simply that it takes the complaint away from the criticism that, well, it's just allegation. Yes, the complaint is just allegation, but there is a substantial amount of evidence that has been included as support for those allegations. So just from right out of the gate, it has done a fantastic job of substantiating what he has claimed, far above and beyond what we've seen any of the accusers present in the last year of having had discovery ongoing and all kinds of opportunity to present their corroboration. So that I think is going to have a pretty significant effect. We obviously saw the extent of the coverage that it got after we finished our video yesterday. This story got everywhere. It was picked up by the Associated Press. That means it will now circle the globe. This was a big story, and I believe that substantiation is really a big part of that, because it's causing people to take these claims very seriously.
Well, and I want to say that my sense of how Manson and his team have been going about things, just from observing, like, publicly, their behavior and how they have been slow to do this. This is something that the people have been begging for Manson to come out and do an interview or to attack these women, and they've been saying, "Where's the defamation lawsuit? Where is the fight back?" And I think they have waited, his team and he have waited this long because I think that I think that they realized that this lawsuit needed to do more than just be legally convincing. It needed to be publicly convincing. And I think they've done it, like you said, they've done a really good job at putting in this document the things that even ardent Evan Rachel Wood supporters on some level, honestly, have to look at some of this and be like, anyway.
Didn't see that coming.
No. Go ahead. What else? What were you going to say?
And so the other effect that I think that strategic decision had, the decision to include these just little drips of evidence that's obviously in their possession, is it does raise the question of, my God, what else do they have? There's a screenshot of a single text message that's copied into the body of the complaint. Typically, if you've got a text message, if you've got communications, you may have other communications. It's likely to create some concern on the part of the opposition about what else they have, and particularly when you can assume that Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore know what is out there to be found. And this is such a tiny bit of, the universe of information that's available. So this is a warning shot. This is a clear signal. Like I said, these lawyers, they are not fucking around. They are making it crystal clear that they are not fucking around. I think that we can probably attribute that to the absence nearly 48 hours later of any kind of response from Evan Rachel Wood on this complaint. Like we said, the story flew. It was everywhere. TMZ's updated it a couple of times. Ilma Gore, many people probably saw, had something of a freak out on Twitter, said some extremely ill-advised things that then she went back and deleted later on. But from Evan Rachel Wood's side, there has been radio silence.
I have a question. I'm sorry about the people wanted me to ask you. So about one of the things that Ilma Gore tweeted when she, so the tweet said something to the effect of, these images that are out there are my copyrighted property, and beware of that when you share them. Is that incriminating? Did she just incriminate herself saying that these images are hers?
It certainly can be interpreted that way as an admission that yes, these images are legitimate and
they're taken from my hard drives.
Yes, she's claiming that they are taken from her hard drives, and you know, if she was not correct about that, and these images were obtained from some other lawful mechanism, then that's going to be a very, very damaging admission that she made. Just people don't defend yourself on Twitter. It's so stupid. Yeah, that was just a classic situation of
it was Amber Heard like behavior, honestly. I mean, I think it just shows how crazy these people are that we're dealing with. But anyway, I want to get back to the lawsuits and what you were talking about. So what were you saying? Do you remember?
Well, so we haven't had any type of public response from Evan Rachel Wood yet, and you know, she's obviously not obligated to respond in the press, but it's a little bit odd. And I will just give you a counter example. Just yesterday, a story broke of Meghan Markle being sued by her sister for defamation over a variety of the claims that she made in the Oprah interview and stuff. And before TMZ even ran with the story, you know, their practice is they'll get a copy of the information, they'll contact the parties for comment, and if they get the comment before their cutoff time to run with the story, they'll include the party's comment. So Meghan Markle, you know, is able to respond instantly through her lawyer with the kind of standard, oh, this is frivolous and we're not going to give it any serious attention and so forth. It's not that hard to come up with a message like that. You know, when you're prepared and when you saw it coming and when you have already figured out, you know, this is essentially what the line of defense on this case is going to be. So again, Evan Rachel Wood has no obligation to respond to these allegations in public. And frankly, I expect that at this point now, if we do hear from her, it's going to be something along the lines of, I'm going to let the court system play out and, you know, not try it in public opinion after all this bullshit that she's trying to try Marilyn Manson in the court of public opinion. But it just goes to show how unprepared they were for this, and they don't have a strategy yet. They don't know how to deal with it. And it may be that, you know, there's more going on behind the scenes than we know about. There's a huge prisoner's dilemma problem here for both Ilma Gore and Evan Rachel Wood. The prisoner's dilemma, if you're not familiar with that, is this notion that when you involve other people in your crimes, as soon as they can get some benefit to themselves or avoid some harm to themselves by throwing you under the bus, their incentive is to do that. And law enforcement knows this very well, and they're very adept at employing various measures to induce people to see the benefits of looking out for themselves in this type of situation. So there's a very good, you know, probability, likelihood, whatever you want to call it, in my mind, that those considerations are very much going on behind the scene. But that's, of course, just a guess on my part.
Is this from I know I'd asked you yesterday or whenever, what Evan Rachel Wood's attorneys must be thinking, but now that you've actually read the document and you've kind of seen how things have played out, and like with Ilma Gore, you know, her tweeting and stuff, like, is this kind of like I mean, I know criminal attorneys, they get paid no matter what. They don't really care. But like, if you're wanting to win a case or look good, is this kind of like your worst nightmare? This kind of a scenario? Is this pretty bad?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you thought you were going to make a career off of Phoenix Rising, then things right now are really not looking up for you. I think, again, that's part of the strategic decision that Marilyn Manson's lawyers made in how they crafted this complaint. Is it will certainly cause a lot of folks to question whether that's the horse they want to back.
Right. Now, you mentioned that TMZ had updated their story a couple of times, and one of the updates that they provided was really like strange, sort of Orwellian language, but it basically said that the LASD, the cops who have been investigating Manson, that Manson's team did let them know, did report to them this shady stuff that Evan Rachel Wood did. And then the update said that the police said that it's going to be referred to those who are dealing with the Manson situation and to the prosecutor. Do you think that how much, if any, actual like trouble could they be in with the government, like criminal charges? Do you think there's a likelihood that they could get prosecuted like Jussie Smollett?
Well, to answer that, let's go on one of the points that, to me, a lot of light has been shed on from this complaint, because, and that has to do with the search warrant that was executed back in November of 2021. We have still very limited information about this warrant. It hasn't been made public. That's typical. They usually aren't unless case arises from it and there's litigation over its basis. So we don't know what the grounds were, but we have these previous public statements that they were published by a couple outlets, including the Rolling Stone, where they confirmed that this search warrant arose from the allegations of sexual assault and abuse that had been made against Marilyn Manson. And that as a result of the search warrant, they had seized a number of devices and hard drives. Then when we look at his complaint and we see these allegations that he has presented about the basically fake emailing of illicit pornography. So we talked about this yesterday and how we can't know that it's child porn. It doesn't say that it's child porn, and there's nothing about child porn, explicitly stated in the complaint. But I'm here to tell you, it was an allegation of child porn. And the reason why I can say that is because pornography in and of itself is perfectly legal. It is constitutional to own and possess. And there's a specific standard of obscenity that has to be reached for that type of thing to not be entitled to constitutional protection. I have seen countless child pornography investigations, how they unfold, what the search warrants look like, and what type of information they are based on. And this is exactly along the lines that you would see if you've seen a number of these types of investigations. So a particular piece of information that jumped out at me from the complaint was in paragraph 41, where he said that that Marilyn Manson learned of these fake email accounts and the fake emails described above in November 2021, when copies of these emails were shared with him. That tells me these emails were associated with the search warrant, and that this is very likely what the search warrant was based on, a report that he's engaged in this type of distribution of child pornography. And that's why they seize all of the devices, all of the hard drives and things like that. The police will take those devices. They have a various different types of extraction programs that they use that will essentially get all of the data out of the device. It will organize it, categorize it, provide you with, neat little reports on it and stuff. And if there is any, evidence of any type of problematic material, whether it's still there or just had been there in the past, they're often able to pick up those types of residual pieces of data from the device. They get that information extremely quickly, and that's almost always going to be sufficient grounds to go forward with a criminal charge, which they have obviously not done in the case of Marilyn Manson.
So just to summarize, to make sure I understand, what you're saying is that your guess, and again, we don't have any knowledge of this, absolutely, but your guess from what you're reading is that the kind of pornography that Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore were downloading and trying to send out through Manson's account, you think was probably included some child pornography, and that could have triggered this LASD investigation that they wanted to verify or see what was going on the hard drives, and that now they've looked and obviously found nothing. This
is my theory.
That's interesting.
I think that it's almost certainly an effort. The allegation in the complaint is that there was an effort to try to plant some child pornography on his devices, or through this email account that was attempted to be associated with him. Oh, and the other thing that, of course, the police can do, which I'm sure people know, is they can trace the IP address of these types of communications, and so they'll be able to know, is this email address, has this ever been associated with any of Marilyn Manson's devices? And so then if they're, able to confirm that it's not, then clearly its evidentiary value is pretty minimal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we take that allegation at face value, read between the lines here of what's being asserted, and understand that they tried to get a child porn investigation going on him, let's talk about the potential criminal exposure of that, because that has just raised the bar so far beyond anything that we have seen so far. Child pornography, having anything to do with it, basically possessing it, doing any type of distribution with it, that type of thing. These are extremely serious federal crimes. These are the situation where if you're a first-time offender and you don't have any type of aggravating circumstances or anything like that, you're looking at a 5-year minimum prison sentence. Okay, these are not things that are taken lightly. And of course, there is no way that Ilma Gore is going to be able to plant child pornography on Brian Warner's device without herself possessing and transmitting that child pornography. Right. So